Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
Today, we are stepping into a little bit of a heavy subject here. We're reading one of the most critically acclaimed comic books of all time. It is the well-known book known as Maus, M-A-U-S. And this is a book about the Holocaust, and specifically about the author's dad surviving through the Holocaust and World War II, and just his life in general. So, yeah. John, had you read this one before?
No, I had not. We talked about it, I think, a little bit, and kind of like hinted at as far as like that it's Holocaust, but the creator takes some changes, like that's called Maus because that's German for mouse, which is he picks the characters he represents.
It's
like I'm stumbling here.
John's stumbling here. Oh, so basically, it's called Maus because he uses caricatures of the races, I guess, in the book, or the peoples in the book, to be different animals. So the Jews are mice, the Germans are cats, the Americans are dogs, the French people are frogs. Are there any ones I'm missing?
The Polish people are
Polish
pigs.
people are pigs. Yeah. So those are the main ones that they show. I don't think they show anybody else.
There are some bees in there that are supposed to represent gypsies, I believe, but that's not.
Oh, I did not see those people that were bees. I didn't see bees.
I think it was very like they were just like very.
And that word is what they use in the book.
In the book, yes. I'm not. Yes.
Anyway, John, after you offend our traveler listeners,
yes,
trying to figure what was the word, what's the proper word we're supposed to use. Anyway, the Roma, the beautiful Roma people.
Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, this book is pretty heavy, obviously, with the subject matter, and it is based on a true story. Obviously, it's based on Art Spiegelman, who is the writer. His father, Vladek Spiegelman, is about his life and his time with his wife in the concentration camp of Auschwitz, Birkenau, and he was also at Dachau for a bit too. So, it's pretty messed up as far as, subject matter. But it is one of the most critical acclaimed. It was in the news recently because I don't remember what tried to ban it. Some school or something tried to ban it.
Some school districts did. I mean, I definitely, I could see like maybe not younger kids.
Yeah, I mean, obviously elementary schools shouldn't have the Holocaust book because, mice are in it or whatever. But like, I mean, at high school, this should be in high school books.
Yeah.
Or high schools probably. So I don't see the problem with that. But I don't know what the school was, or I don't really know what was going on. But I just heard, it's it's a thing now, and so people have been talking about it more. So I figured, Otaku Mike, our patron, voted to do a true life story, and this is one of the most well-known true life stories that's a comic book. So I figured we'd do that. And speaking of patrons, I'd like to give a shout out to our patrons. We got Otaku Mike, like I just said. We got Hoku, and we got our newest patron, Ed H.
Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And as part of that, we are going to be doing our August patron poll next week. We are going to be voting on manga. We haven't read manga for a bit, so we're going to throw out 4 different mangas and let you all vote on which ones you want us to do. And we will be picking one of those from you guys. Well, you guys are picking it, so you guys will pick what we do one of the weeks next week.
Yeah, so you have time to sign up if you'd like to become a patron. We got patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word.
Yeah,
you can sign up. We still have some slots left on our superfan tier.
Yeah, which is the Hellblazer podcast that I do. Much like Matt's Minis Swamp Thing, it is Matt's Minis Hellblazer. I'm reading through all the issues. This week we are on issue 31. So working our way through that long run
Yeah.
of Hellblazer.
But that's awesome. So that's a lot of extra episodes just for patrons. So
Yep.
definitely check it out.
And right now it's a little bit cheaper because we wanted to get people to jump on it. So super fans, that means you get the super fan deal. I think it's $2 a month. So check that out. We really appreciate your support, and it really helps us keep going, helps us keep the lights on. Keeps us motivated to do stuff. So, because while we love comics, it's nice to know people like what we're doing and get involved in picking stuff for us and whatnot. So,
Exactly.
So anyway, back to the comics. So, like I said, this is written by Art Spiegelman, who's like a cartoonist. I think that's how he refers to himself. He's not just a comic book maker or whatever. So, I think I don't know what this aired in or was put in first. I think it was in some kind of magazine. In like little sections, little chunks, like it wasn't printed as like a comic first. In like a graphic novel, but it is collected into 2 graphic novels now. One's like the before, or it's like before they get to Auschwitz, and then once they get to Auschwitz, it becomes the second graphic novel, which is Auschwitz and afterwards. So, so there's like a big lead up, and we're not going to go like we do for most of the books and like. Go like, okay, this is what happens in this story, because it's not really a story, it's a person's life, and there's a lot that happens. Like the dad is pretty specific in like what happens in the book, so, or like what happens in the life. So but it starts off, there's a progression, and I like the way they do this. We get like Art and his dad don't have the best relationship, and this book is almost it's almost like it's being written in real time. Like as you're reading the comic strip, the dad's talking about what he's writing about. Like, he's like, make sure you add that I did this. And then we see like he did that. Like, so there's a bit of like a meta aspect to it on that level. But it does jump back and forth between the 80s when this was written and when this was when he was writing it, and the 30s and through World War II. Wherever he's talking about. So we always start off each chapter with the dad and him talking, or Art going over to the dad's house and his dad being like, you want to help me with the windows? And then like he's like, oh, I don't, like I thought we were going to do the book, and he's like, no, we got to help with the windows. And like so he definitely does his dad well. And I mean by that I mean he's true to his dad. He doesn't hold anything back. He shows his dad's faults along with like his relationship and what it really is like, because it's not very it's not that it's not good, but there's definitely strains in the relationship. And like he just doesn't understand his dad. Like, why does dad penny pinch so hard when he's perfectly well off, and all this kind of stuff. And we find out as we go through the book that obviously a lot of it's due to the trauma of being in Auschwitz, whatever. It's kind of like, I don't know if you had, I'm sure you did, your grandparents were in the Great Depression or whatever. My grandparents, till they died, had, coffee cans full of pennies and shit that they would just keep all over the house.
Yep.
And pretty much anything that could hold money had money in it. But like, I'm not talking about like, hundreds of dollars. I'm talking about like pennies and stuff. Everything that was full of copper pennies or silver dollars or 50-cent pieces from like the they had stuff that was from like the 60s in there. Like, oh yeah, that's how long they've been saving the stuff.
Yeah, I remember sadly when my mom's mother passed. Like, we found a lot of coffee jars and shoe boxes and things with
So I think that just comes with hardship, but then even magnify that to you were in Auschwitz or whatever.
Yeah, living through the one of the worst tragedy probably has ever happened to a group of people.
Yes, one of the worst genocides of all time. So there's definitely like an interesting character who is his dad. Like, it's as a reader, you're like, wow, his dad's a lot. But then you read what his dad went through, and you're like, oh shit, like, well, that makes sense. But so I could see how some people might not like his dad that much in this, as far as like when he's older. But then when you read about what happens, because his dad is so in the World War II parts, he's got a wife named Anya. That's Art's mom, and she has passed at the beginning of this book. She killed herself or committed suicide. So, and she was always dealing with depression even before World War II and
Yeah,
everything.
when they first got together, even they
Yeah.
said that she took medication to kind of help calm her nerves.
Yeah. I don't know what the medication would be back then.
I'm not sure.
Laudanum or something. Here's some opium or whatever. I don't know what the fuck they would use back then, but yeah. So she was already like had issues with depression and stuff, and then imagine losing your entire family in the Holocaust and your children and everything, and that would just add to it. So eventually, she killed herself in '68, I think, is when it was. So his dad remarries, and the way he treats his new wife is not the best. Although you're not sure because the dad is relaying how she is to him to Art, and Art doesn't obviously believe him everything he's saying. But then it seems like some of the stuff is true, but it might just be because like basically the dad's like, she just wants me for my money, but it seems like yes she does, but not in the way that he's saying it.
Yeah, it's very. You could tell that they're. He was lonely, and this was like the next chapter of his life, and so there's some love there, but there's also like some deep he says many times
like she's his caretaker,
yeah, and that he still misses Anya, like to her even. He's like,
yeah.
You're no Anya.
Yeah,
she's
yes.
like, thanks.
Yeah, and like when he says like she just cares about money, it's like she's like I just need to buy shoes or whatever, like
yeah, that's
like he won't give me money for like hair, like a hair comb or whatever, like shit like that. But he's taking that as like she just wants my money, and so it's like it's weird because when she eventually leaves him at the end of the book for a little bit, and she apparently does say I'll come back for $100,000 or something, and he's like, see, all she wants is my money, and he keeps saying that she has gone with him to change his will a bunch of times. So I don't know how true any of that is. That's just what Art is relaying what the dad is saying to us.
Yeah.
So it didn't seem like she was that money hungry, but at the same time, I don't know.
Yeah, when he shows conversations, and they're obviously verbatim because he puts in lines like, "Don't forget to put that in your book."
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So it's very much, you can tell like they're both giving their perspectives of a relationship that is strained for both of them.
Yes,
and because of that, some things are true, some things they're embellishing from the other, because
and something's just what they think is
Yeah.
reality, or what it's the person's point of view. So, but they have a strained relationship, much like Art and his dad's relationship.
Yeah.
And they bond a bit about because obviously his dad didn't want Art to become a cartoonist because you can't make money or a good living like that, according to his dad. So he wanted him to be a doctor or whatever, but Art is not. So he's trying to write this book about his dad and get these stories out and to turn them into Mouse, what eventually became Mouse. And so his dad enjoys talking about it to his son, but it is a lot of work for the dad. Obviously, he has to remember all this stuff, and it's not fun to remember. And even so much that, like, apparently the mom, Anya, before she killed herself, she had written a bunch of diaries about what happened to her, because she was at a separate camp. She was at Auschwitz II, there was Auschwitz I, which is just called Auschwitz. Then there was Auschwitz II, which was actually a bigger camp the second name was called Birkenau. And that was within 2 miles of Auschwitz I, but they were separated. Like, she had a different experience than him at that camp. So all of her stuff, the dad says that he burned the diaries in a fire because it just brought back too many bad memories after she killed herself. The same with a bunch of like pictures and a bunch of other information that he had written down or had. It's like, well, that would have been great for this book, Dad. Why did you burn all that shit? But like the dad gets Art gets super pissed at the dad for that. Like, he even calls him like a murderer because he's like basically murdering the last memories he could have had of his mom, like what she went through, and like know more about his mom, and the dad killed that, So there are things like that happen in the book where it's like, wow, that's super impactful. There's even a section in the book that I really liked where Art, I think it's an actual comic that he published on his own, that's about him dealing with his mom's suicide.
Yeah.
That's not in the Mouse caricatures. It's like the actual comic that he did where you see him, but it's still a caricature, but it's like
it's cartoony, but it's
cartoony, yeah. But it's obviously a person or whatever, and same with everybody in it. And it's very like dark and fucked up, and it's like him trying to process all these emotions about his mom killing herself, and the way people are treating them and him, and how like the neighbors and shit, or the family friends in quotations, will be like, why didn't you do something better with your life? Your mom was so disappointed in you. Maybe she wouldn't have killed herself if you had done something worthwhile, or like shit like that. People were saying that to him. He's like, Jesus Christ. So that's like right in the middle of it.
Yeah, and I did like how he that came about is because his dad had a copy of it, and his dad.
Mala had a copy of it, and then the dad read it. And the dad was all pissed off one day when he came over, and Mala was like, "Oh, it's because he read the comic you made about your mom." And Art was like, "Oh shit, I didn't know he even read my stuff at all." And then he talked to him, and the dad actually wasn't mad about that at all. He was like, it was very like,
because he said later,
sad,
like,
but yeah,
it was sad, but he's glad that like there was an outlet for him, basically.
Yes. So a lot of this book that's kind of like the overview of some stuff that happens that we liked, in the book. But like we said, this book is all from the dad's point of view, talking to the son, Art, about what happened in pre-World War II and pre the camps, and then after the camps. So I don't know how we want to approach this, because we'll go by like the chapters. It is separated into chapters. And the first chapter is called The Honeymoon, and that's just like the rise of the Reich in Germany. They're in Poland, though. So they live in, I don't know how to say any of the names of these places. Starts with an S. Sokovitz or something like that.
Starts with a consonant, ends with a consonant.
Yeah. There's a Z and a Y and a C in there. There's a lot of words I will not be able to pronounce. I'll do my best.
Yes. That town is just outside of occupied territory.
Yes, and it starts with like him. They go into a little bit of history, like how he met the mom, how the kids were, and basically they actually had a child before Art that didn't make it out of the camps, and as a lot of people in their family didn't. So
that was one of the things actually I like that Art said too. He wrestled with a while with like, because there was one photo that he saw of him, and he.
I don't know how to say the brother's name, but it's basically like Richard, but it's like Richow.
It's like
Richow.
Richow.
Yeah.
But basically, like he said, he wrestled years like with being jealous of a photo of someone, because he obviously
like the perfect son is the son that died, and they have this picture that could never be bad or never do anything wrong, and you're living up to that memory. You're putting yourself against that memory. So yeah, that was a hard hitting thing.
Very much so.
Yeah. But yeah, the dad. The other thing that happens like during after when he's talking to him, when he's talking to Art, like obviously his dad is in bad health too, because he's got diabetes, he's got a heart issue, he's already had heart attacks, and this is like he has to take nitro pills every now and then when he he feels it coming on. He's like, give me my pills, So and this. Talking about stuff stresses him out, enough so that it happens a couple times while they're talking. So they do, like, I don't remember when they do it, but I think it's in the first book, before they're gonna go and talk about Auschwitz. He does say, "My dad passed at this time" or whatever. So like, the dad dies in the making of this book, but he does get like the end of the story before that happens.
Yes.
So. So the mom dies in 1968 and the dad dies in like 1982 or 3.
I think
or something
1982.
Like that. Yeah. So and for reference, that is while he's putting out these mouse comics. So like he hasn't finished all of them coming out, and the dad has already passed by the time they come out. So I don't think he ever got to see this work come out. So and it's probably Art's most famous book. He also did a book about the Twin Towers, like in 9/11.
Oh wow!
I think it's called The Towers, something like that. So that was like when I was at the comic book store. I remember seeing that and be like, "Oh, okay," but I never read it. So he likes to pick heavy stuff to write about. So you got to be in the mood sometimes to read some of these heavy things. But yeah, they just go into in the beginning of this book, the honeymoon period, the early life of him and Anya, how they met, them having the child. Richow. I don't know how to say his name, but yeah. And then the rise of these Nazis, basically like getting more political power. Like at the beginning of this, they're not quite. It's interesting how it's like they're not too worried. They're kind of like, well, it's not a big deal or whatever. Like that's them over there in Germany and stuff. And then like when the war happens, because there's a Polish war first, as we all might know. I don't know. Germany invades Poland, and that's what kind of started World War II in Europe. Is Germany invades Poland, they overtake Poland within 2 weeks or whatever, and Vladek got drafted into that army of the Polish army to fight against them. So when they overtake the Polish forces, it's like, okay, well now the Germans are now occupying us, and now it's more real. But even with that, they're like, this war is going to be over soon. Like, like it still seemed like they're not sure exactly what's happening. Yes, people are saying they haven't, like the Germans haven't quite like established their Jew policy yet, so they're not like killing people or taking away things yet from Jews. They're just kind of like, oh, we need to see your papers at first. Like, you need to register here or whatever. And like, you have a work visa, stuff like that. But then eventually they do take all the stores from the Jewish people in the town and make it so they have rations that they're given. You only get so much bread, or you only get so much butter every week or whatever, things like that. So that's like when the hardships really start, is when they start imposing these what would that be called? I don't know. Laws, I guess, just for Jews.
Yes.
And this is where like the family you get to see like who is your friend or not, like, because they're in Poland, so they're around Polish people. Some of them are really nice, some of them are fucking assholes. Some of them are like, oh yeah, you can be in here, or I'll give you some stuff. And some of them are like, hey, there's a Jew over here trying to buy extra food or whatever. Like they'll tattle and whatnot and backstab and stuff. And even other Jews, like they tell or they work for the Gestapo, like they're part of.
Yeah, they had like Jewish police.
Yeah, and so like it's almost like they're like, those people thought maybe they're doing good because it's at least it's not Germans being the police for our area or whatever. Yeah. But they're working for the Germans, and they have to report people and stuff. So they are, inadvertently or advertently, I guess, in charge, responsible for people's deaths and things like that, or people get taken away. Also, at this point in time, they're only hearing stories about, once they get like fully taken over and everything, they're hearing stories about, oh yeah, did you hear, like, in this town far away, Jews got shipped out somewhere, but we don't know where. And then like, so you're hearing like rumblings of what is going to become Auschwitz and death camps and stuff, but it's always just like hearsay. Like, until they actually get there, there's never like confirmation that this is what's going on. Even when they're getting shipped, like they separate the old from the young and women with too many children, from the strong men or whatever. It's because they want the men to work, and anybody who can't work is useless to them. So they, that they go to the death camps, but they don't know that. They just separate them onto a separate, different train that's going somewhere else, and then they never see those people again. And it's war, so you're not necessarily like, oh yeah, they just like sent them to a furnace or whatever, and are burning people.
Well, and they're right around that time. This is when they give their child to.
Yes. Well, there was two parts, right? Yeah. There was a section where they could have, like, when everything starts to really heat up, they're like, one of our friends said, hey, we'll take your kid. You can leave him here. And they were like a Polish family or whatever. So it was like, oh, they'll be safe here. And like, you can come back after, hopefully you get out or whatever they're going to put you. Like, once again, they didn't know they were going to death camps and stuff. Yeah. They were just like, we're going to go somewhere. They're going to put us in a camp or a prison or a work camp or whatever, or a factory to work in. And then whenever the war's over, you can come get your kid. And they were like, no, we don't want to do that. So then they brought the kid with them. And then the next time they tried to do that, like, another family's like, we'll take him. And they're like, okay, you go. They did not make it out. They sent their first son away with another family that was trying to get out, and they did not make it. So
no. Yeah. And unfortunately, they were saying the mother of that family didn't want anything bad to happen to the children, so she ended up killing all of the children.
Yeah, she poisoned them when they were getting like raided by the Germans to be taken away. She was like, no, we're not having any of that. Like, here, everybody take poison. So I guess that's like the best way to go if you're a kid. And, I'd rather not go to Auschwitz or worse because they were talking about, and this is like heavy, so trigger warning or whatever, but like, they were talking about that the Germans would come and just like pick up kids by their feet, so like babies and infants and toddlers and shit, and just like smash their heads, like whip them around and smash their head on the ground just to kill them. It was like, okay, that's fun for today or whatever. Like, just shit like that could happen where.
Yeah, it made them very nonchalant about it. Just like, oh, we're out doing our, not even like job. It was more like, not necessarily fun.
They were having fun. They were definitely taking pleasure in, like, these are not people, and we have all the power.
Yeah.
So, as you do when you're a police of a authoritarian state, you don't care about other people. And one thing I thought was interesting is the dynamic of the survivors in this. Like, very rarely do people do things out of just the kindness of their heart, which you get because everybody's risking their life. Like, if you're going to hide in my house, like, what can you give me? So, like, I'll let you hide in my house, but, like, can I have some gold or a watch or extra food or whatever you got? Like, you have to bargain a lot to get this going. And that's basically how the dad survives in this, setting, even in Auschwitz and everything. He is able to make the right decisions and barter with the right people and, like, not barter with the right people as well. Like, he decides, he makes all the correct decisions except once that I could think of, which is actually how they get sent to Auschwitz or how they get found, I think.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
They try to go to Hungary, and they pay some people that are Polish to, like, get them across the border to Hungary. And when they're on the train, it turns out those people just took their money and then were like, hey, there's Jews here. And so that's how they end up getting caught and sent to the camp of Auschwitz. But before that, they were just living in Poland in the ghetto that the Germans set up for them. And then it was kind of interesting. You think, like, okay, either you're in the ghetto and living or you're being sent somewhere. I don't understand how the Germans are like, how do you hide? And then the Germans are like, oh, there's no one in that house. And then the next day there is people in that house. And like, oh, I guess we missed someone or something. Like, it seemed like the Germans, you're allowed to live there. And if the Germans do raids at night, then you better hide. And then if they don't catch you, then the next day they're like, okay, we didn't catch you. Like, it seemed like that's kind of what was happening. Like, only specific groups of Germans would round up people for these train camps or these trains that are being sent to the death camps sometimes. But then the regular Germans that are there during the day aren't the ones sending you to the death camps, but they're definitely not nice people or whatever. They're still guarding you and shooting you for fun and doing horrible things. So,
because there was that one that talked to him at one point. And I'm trying to remember what he said, but he asked him about something, and he spoke.
It was because he spoke German.
German, that's right. Yeah, because he was quite learned. He had
that was another thing. Vladik could speak Yiddish, Polish, German, and English, so that helped him get what he needed a lot. Because a lot of the times they're like, if you can't speak anything and you're not, strong enough to work, then we don't need you. So even if he wasn't strong enough to work, because a couple times he had like typhus and stuff like that, or he was just so malnourished he couldn't work, they were still like, oh, we need you as a translator. So like that also helped. Being prepared for the situation that might arise just helped out that he was able to do that. And that also is like one of the reasons why he survived. That's also a reason why Anya survives, because his wife also does survive. And she was able to like speak English and stuff too. So that helped. I think she became like an English teacher for someone for a while, and that kind of got her out of it. And there's a lot of stuff like that where like they were just, it was luck, but it was also like being prepared for the situation. And then like, even though you had no idea that was going to happen, kind of thing. So like I said, this book is divided into two separate parts. So when they actually get to Auschwitz, that's when like it starts to get heavier before that, but then it's very heavy once they actually get to like the death camps. He does this thing where even with his little brother, when he was talking about the picture on the wall that he was like living, he had no way to live up to, he shows the real picture of his brother.
Yeah.
So like while there's caricatures of mice and cats and stuff that kind of makes it more palatable, he would show pictures of what was actually, what the people look like, which makes it just, infinitely more real and hard to process, because it's like, well, that's the actual baby that died. That's what his dad looked like, right after he got out of Auschwitz. Like, that's crazy. And then another thing that he showed was like how he does a couple diagrams of like certain buildings and stuff, and he showed like how this is how we would build a hideaway in a building that we were hiding at, and it would show like, here's a cutaway, and you see like the building as if it was cut in half, and you could see like, here's the coal, like where we do the coal, and then behind the coal we built a fake wall, yeah. And this is where we hide. And because the coal's in front of it, the dogs would like sniff and go crazy, but they could never understand. No one was in the coal, but they didn't think to look behind the wall that was fake or whatever, like that kind of thing. So he does that, and then he also shows, like, I guess the dad actually drew these out for him, and then he like cartooned them up for the comic. Yeah. But he also shows what, because he had to go into the ovens at, is it at Auschwitz or is it Dachau?
I think it was Dachau.
I think at Dachau, he has to go into an oven where they were killing people. So if you don't know, I mean, we cover this lightly. Yeah. So in these death camps, they would work people until they were sick or whatever, or they would experiment on people and stuff. And then once you were too sick to work or be of any use to them, they would put you in. They would say, "Oh, we're going to take you to the showers, and you're going to clean off." And then there were fake showers, and they would actually release a gas called Zyklon B into the shower room, and then they would wait till they stopped hearing noises coming from the shower room, because the doors would lock, obviously, when that happened. And then with all the dead bodies in the shower room, they would there was another part of this building that was basically like a crematorium, and those are the ovens that people talk about, that they would just cremate people 24/7. There was black smoke coming out of these by burning bodies 24/7 for, however many years, 6 years, 8 years, whatever it is. And very long time. There's a constant supply of people they're bringing in. I think they said in Auschwitz 1, there was 10,000 people there, and Auschwitz 2 had 40,000 people. And then I can't remember, like they were saying like at the end when they were in Dachau, they were bringing in like 100,000 people, a week or something like that, like a crazy amount of people. And they were like trying to, before anybody, like, because they were losing the war by that time, like before anybody found these camps or found the Jews that were there and other people, they were like, we just need to kill them all. So like, we can't wait for this oven to burn people. So we're just going to have them dig trenches that are super deep, and then we'll just pour gasoline on dead and living people and light them on fire. And then, we'll take the fat from the bottom of those pits and then throw that on top of more people that we put on there as like fuel or whatever. It's super fucked up. Yeah, they were just murdering people to murder people before the war ended, kind of thing. So it's kind of amazing that the dad was at all three of those camps. Though the dad and the mom, I guess, because he was at Birkenau for like work, because they were close enough, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to go repair someone's shoes over there." But he wasn't at Birkenau, or is it Birkenau or Birkenau? I think it's Birkenau. Auschwitz 2. We'll call it Auschwitz 2. So he only went there to work, but his wife was actually there permanently, and so it's kind of amazing how both of them were able to get out, and he even was the one who got his wife out, because he had to make it. I can't remember exactly what he did, but he said like, oh, he was talking to someone in Auschwitz 1, and he was like, can you, or because he was working in a factory in Auschwitz 1. So he was like, hey, my wife knows how to sew clothes or whatever. You think maybe she could come over with the other seamstresses and, work, and she'll be great. And so that's how he gets her out of there. And he has to pay off every time. He has to pay people off for that. They said, so they would get rations of like, you get 3 cigarettes and a crust of bread that's like literally like crunchy and totally stale, and then like some water or whatever it was. I don't even think it was water, but yeah, you just get soup. That's what it was. You get soup. Yeah. And they said the flour was mixed with sawdust and stuff. So like they're eating like wood chips basically, and but his wife was having trouble in Birkenau because she was not only was she had like depression issues and anything before that, but she didn't know if her husband was alive once they got separated, and so when she eventually was able to find out that Vladek was alive, and he was able to find out her that she was alive. So they were able to like send letters and stuff, and he had to like save up like 200 cigarettes and a bottle of vodka. Like he had to trade those cigarettes for a bottle of vodka, which then let him pay off this guy, who then talked to that guy, who then was able to get his wife transferred.
Like you said, like it was all the right dealings that he did, and he was very specific and careful with the rations that he got all throughout the thing. Like
he would like not eat on purpose, but somehow he was able to like live through that. I think the worst thing that he got was he eventually at the end they all got typhus because they were covered in lice, and that's how typhus is spread, I guess, or one of the ways. And so he ended up getting typhus twice, but he was able to live through it enough so that they were like at the end they were like, we're not going to kill him. We'll release him to the Russians or whatever, and get on the train. Like we need people who are just on death's doorstep, but not weak enough so that they'll die on the way there. So you're perfect. Like you're almost dead, but you're not dead yet. Like, and so that was who like the prisoners of war that they were sending to the Russians to, I guess, appease them or something. I don't know exactly why they were doing that, but they were like maybe they were trying to not get judged so harsh or something.
Yeah, a sign of good faith, I guess.
I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows? But yeah, so things like that. Like there was definitely luck played into it, but then he, like I said, he made all the right moves. He was able to wheel and deal and use any of his like, because he was a salesman before, so he could use his sales tactics to kind of get people on his side that wouldn't normally be on his side. Like basically, even if you hate these people, you just be super nice to them. Like he would get like he would find a way like where he's like, oh, I got extra bread somehow, and then like someone would be like a German person or a Polish person that was a guard would be mean to him, and he would be like, oh, hey man, you want this extra bread? And the guy would be like, oh, cool, like thanks. And he's like, no problem. I wasn't hungry anyway. And, like, and then like eventually he would work it up to now they're friends, and then that's how he's like, oh, my wife's over there. Do you think maybe? He's like, well, I can't do it for free. He's like, oh, of course not for free, but maybe for 2 loaves of bread. Like so. It was like he was able to figure this shit out in the worst circumstance possible.
Yeah, he was extremely resourceful in the worst circumstance, like you said, you could possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I think me and John would both die in those situations. Like we're just, I don't know if I would be able to do that. This man was very, very, he's a survivor. I mean, it's literally called Mouse, A Survivor's Tale, because, his dad quite literally was able to survive, not only just him, but him and his wife, and get them both out of those camps,
and like you said, just in general, again, to go to so many of them.
Yeah, that was the other, like, yeah, like I don't, he lived in the ghetto. Then they got transferred to Auschwitz, and they had to, he made it through that. And then when I heard he went to Dachau, I'm like, Dachau's another death camp. like it's not like you're going anywhere better, but they didn't know that at the time. Like, also you're just at the whim of the Nazis. So it's like, okay, I'm going to get on this train because I have to. And, he would, one of the things that he would do is when he was older, he would always pride himself on his exercises in the morning. And I think a lot of that was because he had to stay in really good shape in order to stay on the like not kill list in Auschwitz. So like, he even said specifically, like every week they would line you up and they would say they would inspect you. And if you were good enough to keep working, they put you on the left. And if you weren't, they put you on the right. And no one ever saw anybody again that went on the right.
That's true. He even said there was a couple times where he even like would try to take like clean the mud and dirt off of him.
Yeah.
He would take like, or not, what you could call a bath. But like
right. However you could get clean.
However you could get clean. Yeah, he would look more presentable to be a worker.
Yeah, and another thing he did that I thought this was like one of the cleverest things. So at one of the camps, I don't remember which one it was, but it was towards the end of the book, so it might have been Dachau. But he was brought to there, and they were like they wouldn't feed you if you had lice on your clothes. They were like, "Oh, you're disgusting. Get out of here." So he was like, well, I need to eat to keep my strength up so we can get the fuck out of here. And also, I have other friends as well. So he was able to bargain he somehow was able to bargain for a shirt from a Polish guard. He's like, hey, if you give me a shirt, I'll give you this. And the guy's like, okay, I guess. And then he kept that shirt super clean so that he could wear it only when he went to go get soup, so that they would look at his shirt and be like, oh, you're clean. Here's your soup. And then he always got to eat because he had this extra shirt. And he was able to get it for a friend, too. And then, unfortunately, that friend went somewhere else and was never seen again. And then we found out that he died as well. There was a lot of people that were in this book that were friends or helpers or people that he knew, family members, relatives, acquaintances, that all end up not surviving this. So that was one of the things that was pretty impactful. Is there's all these people you meet throughout the book that know him, and hey, it's Art, or it's Vladek, I guess, it's Spiegelman, and he'd be like, yeah, it's me, and then they come up with a plan to try to get out or make it better for themselves wherever they were, as good as possibly, as good as it could be, and then they'd be like, yeah, we never saw them again after that. They were taken away one night. Somehow they got caught while trying to get out of the town or smuggle this or that or buy bread without a pass or whatever. And we were never, we just saw them walk around a corner and we heard da 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 da, and we never heard from them again. So we were assuming they're just murdered right there. So there was a lot of stuff like that where a lot of people you met or that were in the book that were just acquaintances or people in the family that you met for a little while, they ended up not getting out. And pretty much, they say at the end of the book, pretty much everybody in his side of the family died. He was the only person to make it out besides, I think, one cousin or something. Other than that, everybody else was dead on his side of the family. And I think the wife had a better ratio, but it wasn't very good.
Still, yeah.
And so, this totally eliminated very, very large swaths of people, as genocides do generally. So, and this is an interesting thing. One of the things I think that kind of helped them as a people is because in this book they really show there's a camaraderie between Jewish people in general, where they're like, hey, especially if you're in the family, we help our own family specifically. Yeah. You need a loan, here, and I won't charge you interest, and it'll be you pay me back when you can, or oh, you need bread, here's some bread, whatever they have to barter. They are able to stow it away for when it's needed most. And I think that them as a people have done that over lots of years. So that's why there was a lot of wealth in the Jewish community there anyway, because over the years they're a community that values saving stuff or whatever. And so that came in handy, especially with him. But that also later on ends up kind of being a neurotic trait he has. He's like, well, I'll just get the napkins from the Chinese restaurant next door. Why would I buy napkins? That's a waste of money. It ends up kind of being a neuroses for him later on. Kind of like a hoarder too. Yeah. He never wants to throw anything away. But he'll throw away his mom's books or whatever.
Exactly. That's it. He already says that specifically. He's like, oh, you'll burn all of mom's books and stuff and all of her notes.
But you keep these fucking napkins from the Chinese restaurant 10 years ago or whatever. Or you give me lectures about how I use wooden matches when those other ones are free if you just walk 10 miles to the counter of the local bar or whatever. It's all right, Dad, yeah, but these matches are $1, so who gives a shit? Yeah. There was a lot of stuff like that would come up. And I get it. I think everybody's parents have things that they have, neuroses about.
Their quirks about.
Yeah, their quirks. My dad is similar things. We won't go into that. But
no, I was my folks have stuff too. But
yeah,
one of the things I do like it too that they went into specifically more with the dad. In you're saying with the Jewish community is just kind of the even throughout all of this horrible string of events, we'll say, is that there is still a profound feeling of hope There's a lot of.
I don't even know if it's hope. It's more of like we must go on because we must. You know,
okay.
like just a drive that's there. I don't know if it's a religious thing, or if it's just like, it might be a religious thing because they're like we're God's chosen people or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, but they also have that history of like, you know, in the Bible, they're like they suffered in the desert for 40 years, and and there were slaves in Egypt and all that stuff. So that's definitely in their historical culture of like we are able to persevere through hard times, and when they come like they did in the 40s or the 30s and 40s, like they still have that mindset as you know they had back then or whatever, you know, back in the biblical times or whatever. So yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily like a hope, but it's definitely like a will to survive or like a drive to not give up or whatever. Like that seems.
It might be better.
Yeah, because I don't know if it was ever hopeful. Like I never heard him be like, "We're definitely going to get out of here." Like,
no, but just like I guess I took it as like you said, like it's like survive.
Right. You do what you can. You do everything you possibly can to survive until you can't do anything anymore, and then you're dead. So like
some people would call that hope. Still, I think like you. Maybe it's not hopeful like a cheerfulness.
I guess in the underlying, it is you want the will to survive.
Yes.
Like there's a hope that you will survive, so you don't give up. I guess that's the underlying thing. But when I think hope, I think like a positive drive, like that you're literally being like, I am hopeful that this is going to end soon. Like I'm sure nothing bad's going to happen on that train, or you know, like. Yeah.
Surely someone will come along and save the Simpsons children.
Exactly. And then they fall into a blender. Like, yeah. So, I mean, I think we covered most of everything that happens. They definitely, the end of this, like I said, the dad, he passes, like he mentions that he passes like halfway through the book, but then the dad's story and him talking to his dad in the early 80s, late 70s continues. So like they just mentioned like he does pass.
Yeah, you see more of his decline too. Like,
yes.
After his newer wife Mala leaves at that one point, they go to like see him like right after that happens, and he already wasn't doing well, and he's like, oh, so you guys are here to stay, and they're like, no, we're here to stay for a couple days.
And he's like, no, the summer.
Yeah,
and it's
the
like,
summer.
No, like I don't want to stay for the summer.
And then later on again, again we're a few more years down the road, and again he's definitely not doing as well. And
I could never tell if there were years or months. Like it didn't seem like it was necessarily years, but
I thought it seemed like
maybe it was years.
Maybe it was a year. I mean, at least a year, maybe. I don't know. It definitely seemed like some time had passed. But I like that. So he was in Florida, and then he has.
He fakes a heart attack.
He fakes a heart attack.
Yeah, he calls him and be like, I'm having a heart attack. And then they fly down there. He's like, no, I'm not. I just wanted you to come down here.
Yeah. But then when he goes to the when he goes to the hospital for.
I think he actually does have something happens where he has to go to the hospital. I can't remember if it's it's not a heart attack. I don't think.
No.
It was like a scare or something like he.
But he gets, like he said, he got Mala to come back for a bit of time, and then they're like, okay, well we'll just go up to New York to get better, and then they're like, okay, well we're gonna stay up here.
Yeah, we'll stay with you.
We'll stay with you now.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we'll find a place for y'all.
Yeah,
here.
That was one of the things. Like Art definitely didn't show himself in like a spectacular light. We'll say, he was definitely like honest to how he felt at the time about his dad and about staying around his dad, because I think a lot of people would be tempted if they're writing like a biography of their dad to at least maybe lionize him and also yourself. Like if you're writing a book with you in it, you're going to be like, I'm fucking awesome. Oh, Dad, of course you could stay with me. You know what I mean? Like you want to be the hero of the book or whatever.
Yeah.
And Art doesn't fall into that trap. He tells it like it was, I assume. It
keeps an arm's length. Like,
yeah,
we'll figure it out.
Look, I had faults too, right? Yeah. Like, so yeah, I like that he does that. He's not. You can tell like this is pretty real. Like, yeah. There's some other comics that, and I was talking to John about this. In general, it's interesting that in the comic book medium there are many Holocaust tales and stories that are true, and some are just made up, but they're like trying to capture the events as real as possible. And there's one by Joe Kubert called Yossel. There's one, I think it's actually called Auschwitz by like I think a French author. But yeah, like it's an interesting thing that I noticed when I worked at the comic book store. There's a lot of Holocaust material or just like Jewish stuff that highlights anti-Jewish stuff or things that were done against Jews in comics. And I think that's because a lot of Jewish people are in comics. I mean, the people who created Superman, Joel Shuster and Joe Simon, is that right?
I think it sounds right.
Simon Schuster. I think that's right. They were Jewish people. Superman is like a Moses myth, in like a different context where like, you take this baby, you put him in
a basket,
and you send him
space basket
somewhere, and that somewhere is Earth. So there's definitely
down the Milky Way.
Yeah, yeah. So there's definitely like some Jewish lore in there, and then also like Stan Lee was Stan Leibowitz or something like that. He was a Jewish person, or he is a Jewish person that, or what? He's passed. I'm sorry, he's passed. So he was a Jewish person who changed his name to be Lee to like make it easier for him, I'm assuming, to be in the industry kind of thing. So. And he had a brother who wrote comics as well for Atlas Comics, who didn't change his name. So like there's just a lot of Jewish people that have been in this, and that makes sense that they would want to tell their stories in the way that they tell stories, which is the comic book medium. So it's interesting because you think of comic books are for kids, especially back then, in the early 80s, late 70s for this, and then also even before that, you're talking about. Stan Lee, Marvel Comics, Silver Age, stuff like that. So the fact that towards when indie comics started becoming big in like the 80s, 90s, that's when a lot of these stories started coming out by Jewish creators that are about the Holocaust or about like Will Eisner did The Plot. It's called The Plot, and it's about like just the hatred over the centuries against Jewish people. And so I think it's also called like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that's like, it's all about like where people get this idea that Jews are plotting to take over the world or something like that. So it's like the history of that concept, but from a Jewish point of view, where he's like, here's where they got all that, and this is why it's wrong and all that. So very interesting though that this medium specifically is very Jewish, culturally centered kind of thing. Just because a lot of Jewish people were artists or drew and were creators of comic books. So is there anything else we didn't cover, John, that you can think of that you want to bring up?
The only thing I'll say is the ending, the whole comic obviously is very hard-hitting and, a lot of somber moments. I mean, a lot of moments to cry.
Oh, yeah.
The end specifically where he's like finishing up is basically like he's getting that last bit of the story from his dad.
Yeah.
Pretty much almost on his deathbed.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that he's like, oh, okay, well, I'll talk to you later, Dad. And the dad's like, okay, and he calls him
his son,
the
dead son,
the dead son's name. Yeah. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm tired, and it's been hard to tell you these stories, and he calls him that name.
Bye, Rico. And it's like, oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that, and then like the last panel of the book is like the gravestone of his mom and his dad together at the graveyard. So, I mean, it's very, very hard hitting, and yeah, it's one of the more, you were saying, one of the most hard hitting books you've ever read.
For comic wise, for sure.
Yeah, I even think just in general, book wise too.
Yeah,
it's one of the most hard hitting stories I've read, and especially like just the medium itself. Like I said, when it's the caricatures of mice and cats, it makes it more palatable, and then he hits you with like the real picture of his dad or the real, the story about his mom that's actually like drawn as humans or whatever. Like, so I like the way that he did that. It came in at very poignant moments, and it was good. It was really, really hard hitting and good. A book like that I've recently read was called like Monsters. By Barry Windsor Smith, and we were going to do that sometime, but we're not going to do that for a while because this was very, very hard hitting.
I know I need a little bit of
but Monsters is one of those books as well that was just like, what the fuck. It also deals with World War II and the trauma from that. And so yeah, it's just like just seeing what war and like horrible things do to people, and what horrible things people do to each other are, it's very, very hard. And he did a very good job of translating those very deep and heavy concepts onto the page in a comic book. So this is definitely something I would, tell anybody who's in high school and above to read, and, for history class or whatever, like something like that. But, in colleges, this should be like broken down, and I'm sure it is studied in a lot of colleges, but
I'm sure. And there's actually one other thing I wanted to bring up because I was curious because I mentioned it a couple times, and it from my understanding, this is my very light research, was when they mentioned the Parsha's trauma.
mm-hmm.
I guess that that specifically is like a crux of like holding up a lot of like so weight on your back basically, or a lot of heavy things on your back,
Right.
and like being
You're like Atlas.
yeah, kind of, and like so but it's like it's all for God's gift or whatever eventually, and this is coming from a not very religious person, but I just thought it was interesting because they were saying the like that's the crux of the story, is that it was all of that. So he went through all of that, and his son's able to tell this story to have people see that. So I
Yes.
just thought it was an interesting one.
Yeah, that was, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Like you said, Parsha's trauma.
I think that's how you pronounce it. And forgive me if it's if it's wrong.
I don't know the concept. But yeah, there's definitely like a lot of significance in a lot of the stuff that they're talking about, a lot of concepts. I'm sure in like Jewish religious stuff and other things as well that I don't pick up on because I'm not Jewish. But you don't have any Jewish members in your family, do you, John?
I don't think so.
No, neither do I.
Nothing,
so
yeah.
I've only read about it, watched it, and you were saying that like you haven't actually read or watched a bunch of like many things about the Holocaust. You know about it historically.
Yeah, and I will say I've been to the Holocaust Museum in Washington D.C., and that's a very, because you go when you go there, I definitely suggest to anybody that goes, if you can handle that, because you see a lot of that story of everything that happened. But usually when you go, they give you like a little quote unquote passport, and it's of a person who died at the Holocaust, and you get their story as you go through the levels of this museum. And it's powerful to see, to say the least, to see the amount of items and things that they have from all of those people that perished.
Right. Yeah, I went to the World War II museum in Kyiv, Ukraine when I was there, and that's similar. There's definitely a section of it that is like it's the Ukrainian Holocaust side of it or whatever. So, and there was one of the things that stuck with me. There's a dinner table that is like 100 feet long, and every place sitting is like named a family's name, and that's like all but not all of a lot of the families that were killed in this, camp. I don't think it was a camp. I don't even know if it was a camp, but it was, that was killed during that time. And they had things like, here's a lampshade made of people. Here's a, like a bar of soap made of people. Stuff like that. It was just like, Jesus Christ. So it was very, very messed up and, super fucked up. And I think they're called museums of tolerance or something like that. In LA, there's like the Tolerance Museum, which I think is a Jewish organization where they have like a Holocaust kind of museum. I had never went to that one, but I saw it and I was like, what is that? Because it's called the Tolerance Museum, so I wasn't sure exactly what it was. But someone said, oh, that's the Holocaust Museum. I'm like, oh, okay. And then there's also the Skirball Museum, which shows highlights a lot of Jewish art and stuff. And there was like a comic book exhibit there, like Golden Age creators and stuff. And they actually had Action Comics #1 on display there. So that was pretty cool. And there was like a whole like Jews and Jewish history of comics and kind of thing like that. So, it was pretty cool. I just, it's interesting to read about specifically Art's father's life and see what he went through. and I've read a lot of the other comic books that are about the Holocaust or just Jewish experiences in the Holocaust, and then of course, everybody, most people have seen the movies and stuff. Band of Brothers does a good job of representing like what it was like for the Americans to find these camps. Of course, you have Schindler's List and those kind of movies. Which you said you hadn't seen. You should watch.
No, it was surprisingly I have not seen it. I've seen clips, but
yeah. So obviously you got to be in the mood for it. It's a heavy movie, obviously. So, but yeah. So I think we covered it all. This is a fantastic book. Definitely go check it out and read it. It is the one we read is the Complete Mouse, so it's both volumes put together because they are sold separately in paperback. So, like I said, the before Auschwitz and after Auschwitz. Well, or not during Auschwitz, I should say. And so, John, what would you give it, and what did you think overall?
I mean, overall, like you said, it's very powerful. I like the art a lot. I thought it's
got a style.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's unique caricatures of the different groups of people, but it works. I like the way.
One thing that we didn't talk about whenever they would like be incognito in like a Polish city or whatever, they had like pig masks on.
That's right,
over their mouse faces. I thought that was interesting, like to show, but also like they still had their tails hanging out behind them and stuff. So it's like they're pretending, but it's people could still tell if they knew them or it's not super incognito. Maybe they have an accent. Maybe they slip up, or people know who they are and they know that they're Jewish. So I thought that was a good way to show that.
Yeah, that was clever.
Yeah,
but yeah, and like I said, we there are a couple other characters we didn't like really get into, but like when the Americans come and they're dogs, and the French people. There's like a frog or two, in one of the camps and stuff. And so it was a unique style, and it was very well done though. Like it works for it. The cats were very scary and angry looking.
Yep. Just like regular cats.
Yeah, just like all them normal cats. They're basically
they're murderers.
Yeah, they're all cats are murderers. So.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, this is a weird one to say. Like I enjoyed.
What would you give it, John?
What would I give it? Because I don't,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's not fair to rate it like a normal comic necessarily, but I mean,
I would say this. I don't know. I enjoyed it, and it's a very powerful story. I don't know if I would go back to it. I mean, unless I really was like, oh man, I want to recall that. I mean, like I said, it's a good story.
Well, I read this 15 years ago, and I reread it for this.
Okay,
and I definitely hit harder on different things this time than last time. I don't think you need to visit it more often than that necessarily, but like I think it is a good book. Like kind of like I will rewatch Band of Brothers every 5 to 10 years and be like, wow, that was super fucked up and like heavy and everything. But I don't need to watch it like every week or every year even. Like some people do. That's cool. That's your thing. But like, some of these heavier things, it should be watched. It should be read. It should be talked about. And like discussed in schools and colleges and stuff.
100%.
But like you said, I don't know if you're gonna. This isn't your like, hey, it's Friday. Check out Mouse. So.
Yeah. So if I have to,
I would say don't rate it like your enjoyability. Just be like, is it as a comic book, as the medium? Like we just said, everybody should read this that is over high school age, high school age and over. So. I mean, to me, that's like, would you give this to someone to read? Yes.
Yes, definitely.
That's like where obviously you're not like it's a 10 because it was a blast or whatever, So
yeah, I will say it's not necessarily long as far. I mean, it's it's over 300 pages, but it's not.
I think it was 300 pages. It wasn't over. I don't think.
Okay, but it wasn't necessarily like lengthy as far as read. It was dense with like the characters and all of the events that were happening because it went boom, 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 boom with. From all the little things leading up to like a big, turn of event. So I would say I would probably give it an 8.
An 8. All right. I'm gonna give this one a 10.
Now you're
How
making
dare
me
you,
feel.
John?
I know you're making me feel really bad.
John, he's got some hidden agendas.
Wow. No jokes like that on this one, sir. I'm sorry. I'll put my foot down for that.
Oh,
no,
man.
I.
There's a reason why your favorite bad guy is Sinestro, huh?
Sinestro. Oh, yeah, because this becomes a White Lantern. No, my favorite bad guy is the Red Skull.
No, I meant because he's got
worse.
that whole the whole arc where he's got like the Hitler mustache.
The Hitler mustache.
And he's a fascist.
Yeah, and then he becomes the
dictator or
White
whatever.
Lantern.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so enough of that.
No.
This is too somber for those jokes. Yeah, 8's fine. That's fine. I'm just saying I would give it a 10 because I do think everybody should read this. It is like the peak of like what a comic book can do in a certain situation. It's kind of like, when people read this, they're like, I did not know comic books could do this. Like they don't expect it when they pick it up. They might expect it when they pick it up, but it definitely hits harder because of the medium, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think this is a perfect example of what comic books are able to do and what they can do, not necessarily what they should do all the time, but obviously we want to entertain and everything and we like our superhero stuff or whatever, but these stories specifically stand out to me in everything I've read.
Like you're saying, yeah. I mean, like I would say like the average person probably doesn't know like, oh, there's a hard-hitting comic about a true story about a survivor of the Holocaust. Like that is,
and there's more than one, but
there's more. Yeah, but I just mean like if they were walking and they were like mouse and they saw this cover, they're like, what does this have?
And that's actually the good thing about like all the press it's been getting. I've been seeing it more in bookstores and stuff, like because people are like, oh, people are talking about mouse, let's buy it and put it on the shelves, and then people see it and be like, oh, that's that book someone banned or someone was talking about or whatever. So that's the only good thing about like the controversy of like banning books or whatever. It will get on the news and then people will start buying it again, and then more people will learn about it. And that right now comic books are hot enough that people would actually pick up a comic even if they've never done it before. Yeah. They'd be like, oh, comics are fun now, right? Everybody likes that. And then like they'll check it out. So
and then they'll pick up mouse.
I heard these are hilarious. A good time all around. And then no, that's not the one. But I think it has a swastika on the cover. I think everybody
you know what you're getting.
Know what's getting into with that. So anyway, so you give it an 8, I give it a 10. John, what are we reading next week?
Polar Volume 1. This is a spy kind of a thriller?
Yeah, spy thriller.
You said it was a Netflix movie. I don't know anything about this. I just know things that you mentioned about it. It's
so
Netflix
I
movie?
watched it. I watched this movie. It's got Mads Mikkelsen as the Black Kaiser, who is the assassin, I guess, that was in retirement. It came out around the same time that like John Wick came out, but it was already a property before John Wick came out. So it has a similar vibe to that. Okay. At least the movie did. I don't know what the comic. I never read the comic, so I figured we'll check that out.
It's quite like the format. It looks like it's like a
it's
longer.
like widescreen.
Yeah,
yeah, it looks cool. So I figured we'd check that out. So and then like we said, next week we are also putting out our Patreon poll for the manga we're going to read this month. So definitely check that out. And if you would like to vote on that, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And if you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can email me at planes, trains, and comic books, all one word, @gmail.com.
What's a comment?
Shut up.
Don't forget about our Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube channel for exclusive content as well. We've also got our TikTok out there for quickie updates. So yeah, with that, I guess we'll see you on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.